Coming up next on Access Framingham TV, climbing Mount Whitney, the tallest peak in North America, with my guest, Framingham attorney Chris Petrini. Stay tuned. Welcome to Travels with Jack. I'm Jack Barron, your host. Each month, we bring you a guest with an exciting travel experience to share. It might be a vacation in California, a trip to a small village in Tanzania, a Caribbean cruise, or a visit to Pearl Harbor. Where have you gone? If you'd like to be a guest on our show and share with us a recent trip, a vacation, a cruise, maybe a day trip right here in New England, we would love to have you as our guest. Tell us about the transportation, the hotels, the shopping, the good food or bad that you enjoyed, the people that you met, anything you'd like to share with your friends and our viewing audience. Just contact us here at Access Framingham Television, leave a message, and let us know you'd like to be a guest. You can phone AFTV at 508-875-5434, or you can send an email message to info@accessfram.tv. Our associate producer will contact you to arrange for you to be on our show here on Access Framingham TV. Today, I am very pleased to welcome back to the show Framingham attorney Chris Petrini. In April 2013, Chris climbed Mount Whitney, the highest peak in North America. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you, Jack.
You didn't get any older.
No, I'm trying not to. It happens to the best of us, right?
A few notes. Chris is a longtime Framingham resident, married to Julie, a long time also. They met at Duke University, both as law students. They have 2 children. When I last had Chris as a guest, his son was in the Iraq 1st Armored Division, and he's still there, but he has returned to the States and is in Fort Bliss. His daughter is currently a sophomore at Santa Clara University in Santa Clara, California, majoring in media and social studies. He is currently town council for the town of Framingham, and his law firm also represents several other towns and cities. Chris is going to share with us his trip to Mount Whitney, which is near Bishop, California. We'll try to get a map up shortly to share that with you. This trip was put together with Backpacker Magazine. It was a celebrity climb. They also raised money for Big City Mountaineers, which is a group that works with inner city students and kids, and they help bring them into the great outdoors. So this was a combination of Chris found the Backpacker Magazine folks were going to sponsor this trip. He sent in an application. They said, we're going to pick you. He went with about, well, you'll tell the folks, quite a few other people, and did charity work. So for those of you who maybe want to backpack, go to some interesting places, there are organizations like Backpacker Magazine. You can find them online or in different magazines. Contact them. They run trips. It's a great way to travel. I've been on trips with groups, and it's terrific. So tell us a little bit. I'm going to ask you all kinds of questions, how you got there, when you left. Fill us in a little bit.
I will do that, and thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.
So anyway, if you remember, I was here last time talking about my epic trip to Nepal.
I remember it.
And so about a year after I finished that, I was thinking about what would be my next adventure, and I happened to be reading Backpacker magazine. And in the August 2012 edition, there was an article by the editor of the paper saying, "Come climb Mount Whitney with me," with a question mark.
Come climb with me.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in explaining what this whole purpose would be, which would be to try to climb the tallest mountain in North America by way of the Mountaineers route, which is a difficult way to go up, and also at the same time raise money for charity. So as you pointed out earlier, I filled out an application, explained my past climbing and hiking experience and why I wanted to be involved with this, and I was selected along with about 60 other people across the country. And so there were 6 climbing expeditions of approximately 10 climbers each, and I was on team number 3, and we called ourselves Team Heat Seekers. And we went out last April and did the climb, and we have photos here today to go through it.
Wonderful. I want to see some of the photos. So this was really a big group. 60 is a lot of people.
Yep, and they were divided into 6 climbing expeditions, and we had guides from Sierra Mountaineering International, and they do an excellent job. And so we basically had 3 or 4 guides per climbing team, because we were on ice axes, we were using ropes and other technical crampons. Which,
I always have these guys. I can't do these kind of trips. Maybe if they have a sled, they'll pull me up on it or something. But so the 6 groups you get going.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: do you all join for dinner and have like a campfire thing, or how do they do that?
No, they because there's limited. You have to get permits from the federal government. This is a federal mountain, federally controlled parkland, and so basically one group went up at a time.
Okay.
So the 10 of us in Team Heat Seekers went on April 22nd through the 26th, and other groups came before and other groups followed.
Oh, okay. So so basically, it's the 10 of you travel, and then another week they bring more people up.
Correct. They don't, and they, we saw a couple groups going up and going back, but we're not all there on the same time because there's not enough space on the mountain.
So did you leave from Boston? How did you get out there?
Yes, I flew from Boston and I flew into Las Vegas.
Okay.
And instead of L.A., because I figured it'd be more interesting to drive to Mount Whitney by way of Death Valley in California. So,
okay.
So and because it's basically the same distance between L.A. and Las Vegas, but Las Vegas is more of a remote way to get to the mountain.
Okay.
And I went through Death Valley, which is a very famous area, which has actually one of the lowest points in the country. It has about 200 feet below sea level, and 3 days later I was at the highest point in the country. So it was kind of a contrast in areas that I drove through to get to the mountain. So, and I met people from the climbing expedition, 2 people from Las Vegas.
Here we go. Mount Whitney elevation 14,496.811 feet. Well, that's pretty good.
Yep.
Big city. Okay, April 20th, and there's California in the red.
Yep.
And Mount Whitney is probably, there it is. Look at that.
Yep.
Thank you, Bill. Right in the square. So you were kind of near the Ponderosa.
Okay, exactly. You can see Death Valley just to the right of that. That's what we drove through on the way up, and pretty close to the Mojave Desert also.
Yes.
So, yeah. And that's our logo for our climbing expedition. It's called the Team Heat Seekers, and that was designed by one of the members of our crew. So, and this is that article I mentioned to you from the Backpacker magazine where I decided to apply. That was in the Jonathan Dorns, the editor of Backpacker magazine. He was on the climb with us. So. And to get ready for this, I had to do several climbs over the summer and over the winter, I should say.
Oh, you had to be like a athlete preparing yourself.
And I did a lot of preparation because I knew this was going to be quite challenging. I was the most experienced in terms of age by a good measure on this climb, so I knew I had to get ready.
Does that mean you were the oldest guy on the trip?
I was the oldest by a long shot. The average age is probably in the mid-30s, I would say, John.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it can be done. It can be done. Here we are in the Mid-State Trail back last January. I did a lot of hikes through the Appalachian Mountain Club, and this was one of the groups I went up to, the Mid-State Trail. That was just in Massachusetts, but it was a cold day, but that was one of my first prep hikes. So this was about, and then I did Mount Monadnock. People have heard of that. You can see how icy that was. I did that in mid-February. And there's several pictures you're going to see.
I'm looking at this and I'm saying the snow is on its way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we had to use what they call micro spikes and ski poles to get up here, and then you could occasionally have to use other gear too. So that's a picture of our backpacking materials on Mount Monadnock. And then Mount Moosilauke I did in early March.
Where is Mount Moosilauke?
Mount Moosilauke is in central New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
And there was probably about 8 to 10 feet of snow on the summit
Wow.
here. So we used snowshoes and also.
Now, did Mount Washington have a similar layout as this as far as snow and stuff?
Yes, it did.
Oh,
In fact,
did?
we're going to see a picture of Mount Washington. And this, I actually hiked this with one of my fellow town council buddies with his
the
dog. Yep, that's on the summit of Mount Moosilauke. His dog's name is Ginger. It was a very sweet dog. So his dog has hiked most of the 48 top
Really?
peaks in the White Mountains. Yep. So, and there it is, 4,800 feet. Now, of course, Mount Whitney's about 4 times higher than Mount Moosilauke, but it's good to prepare in the White Mountains. I'm actually going to Mount Rainier next June, and I'll be preparing also in.
I hope you'll come back with that. Is that going to be through these same folks?
No, this one here is through Rainier Mountaineering International. It's not through Big City Mountaineers, this one.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yep. So. And there I am. There's Ginger. She was with us that day.
She looks beautiful.
She's a lovely dog. Yeah. And there I am on Mount Wachusett. I went up to the state park about 2 weeks before. About a month before I was leaving at that point. And then here we are. I did North Twin Mountain to also prepare on March 30th.
This is also in New Hampshire.
This is also with the Appalachian Mountain Club. In fact, one of the guys I met on this hike, I'm hiking Mount Rainier with. So I met a friend, and you could see we had to do some river crossing. You see people have the snowshoes on.
Mount Rainier, by the way, is beautiful to look at. I've seen that mountain.
It is lovely.
And I think you'll probably spend, a few days in Seattle when you get up there?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and here we are on the way to North Twin. You can see how tall. That's actually tall trees, but the tall trees, there was so much snow that those were the tall tree branches. Probably 10 feet of snow, and that's what actually the top of.
My.
But we're so high up on the snow at this point. They have a lot of snow in these mountains. You can see winter. You get a feeling for how much snow there is on North Twin Mountain.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and I'm getting ready to book a plane to get the hell out of here.
And there's Mount Washington, Jack, in the distance. You can see Mount Washington.
Yep.
See that in the distance? Yep. And see Mount Washington was snow covered as well. So. And then I am with my cousin. This is like one of my last hikes down in.
This is North Carolina. So there you're in shorts.
There you're in shorts, exactly.
Okay.
About 2 weeks before I left with my hike. So. And then here we go. The journey begins.
Well, I like that sign.
Yeah, and I had some, and then Death Valley. I mentioned we flew out and we went through Death Valley. So I took just a couple pictures of Death Valley and added it into the slide.
You could have told me it was the moon.
Exactly, and here we are. This is our climbing expedition. We met the night before, and that's everybody who was on the climb with me. We met for.
Okay, so it's not all men. You had
there
women.
There were 2 women on this hike.
Okay, how were they? Good climbers?
Very good climbers. Yep, very good climbers.
Terrific.
So. And then we started hiking up the next morning, and we went up the Mountaineers route. And so Mount Whitney Trail is very commonly hiked, but we went up the Mountaineers route.
So I see. This is the lawyers.
Right, exactly.
This is not our responsibility.
Exactly. You're taking your chances. You're taking your chances. So.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of the guys on this, Reinhold and Jake. These were some of the guys on and these people all did the same thing. They all applied. They all had to raise at least $4,000.
You're starting, it appears in short sleeve shirts, so it was warm at the base.
Right. We started at around 8,500 feet, and then we went up over 3 days to 14,000, just under 15,000.
And what kind of temperature when you get up to 14,000 feet?
The temperatures went down, when we got up in the morning, they were about 30, high 20s to low 30s. And then, it was quite a bit colder than when we were lower, probably 25 degrees colder.
But you're not below zero?
At this time, no.
Okay. Oh, you mean this time of the year that
Correct, because I went in mid-April.
January?
Oh, definitely. You'd be far
really?
below. Yeah, you'd be far below zero there,
Oh.
Because it was the mid-20s when I got up in the morning, so, and that was mid-April, so you think about doing it a couple months earlier, it'll definitely go below zero. Yeah. And then this is one of the ledges we climbed the first day, and these were very steep ledges. They're called the Espacher ledges, and these were actually intimidating because you had to move your pack, and people would help ferry your pack, and if you slipped, you'd be seriously injured. So they were a little bit nervous. This was the hardest part of day one, going across these ledges. You'll see 2 or 3 photos of these ledges. There's a second one. You can see one of the guys going across it. It's kind of to see the person in the red.
Yes,
it's a little bit far away, but it's very, very steep. ledges that we were going
Now,
across.
when you go on these, do they have cell phones where you can call for emergency help if you need it?
They had satellite radios.
Okay.
Satellite radios. Yep.
So there is communication if there's a problem.
If there's a problem, exactly. In fact, one of the sponsors of this climb was DeLorme. I was mentioning that to you off air, and so they were actually testing some satellite radios, and they did some texting from the summit.
Oh, really?
And a couple of the climbers had they were able to use satellite radios, but I didn't get into that because I wanted to get away from that when I'm on the mountain, So.
Well, it's good to know you had.
Exactly. Now we're starting to gain elevation. This is probably about 10,000 feet or so on day one. So.
I bring up the communication because I think it's important for people who want to go out with their friends, 2, 3, 4 people, and they say, let's go hiking, and they think, wow, we're not going to have a problem, or maybe our cell phone. At least when you go with these kind of planned groups, organizations, they really are properly set up to handle different crises that could come in.
There's no question.
So,
that's an excellent point.
Yeah, because
people on these big mountains, people can get seriously injured and
Sure.
killed. They can get lost.
Yep.
And it's a serious matter. You have to be prepared. No question about it.
it really speaks well for these kind of planned trips.
Yep. So on the first day, we stayed at a place called Lower Boy Scout Lake. This was probably approximately around 11,000 feet or so. The day one, night one, we
So
stayed
you
there.
climbed that many feet
Yep,
just day one?
about 3,000 feet. We started about 8,000 feet and went up to about 10,500 or 11,000 feet.
Okay.
Yep. And this is, you can see where we set up. They had all the tents for the people in our expedition. We had to bring some of the gear up. Some of the gear was already there.
Oh, really?
But you'll see in a minute. You'll see my pack. There's one of our guides. There's our 2 guides from SMI. They were excellent guides. These people, these girls, these young women, they climb like some of the most amazing mountains in the world. So. And then you can see the moon coming up. I like that picture, so I named that Moonrise.
So they help you set up the tents and all of that.
And they help us use the crampons and the ice axe training, and they're just extremely experienced guys. But they do help us in this case.
Makes a big difference.
No question about it. So.
Makes a big difference.
Because I've done a lot of backpacking where I set up my own tent too. But when I'm on these major expeditions, I like to work with people who have a little bit more experience.
Well, I remember your Nepal trip, and you had people assisting you there too.
I had the Sherpa and the porter.
Yes, I remember, but I didn't get the feeling they were as prepared as this group.
No, exactly. These people, no, this was quite a bit. But keep in mind, you'll see my backpack in a minute. I was carrying about 45 pounds, whereas in Nepal, I didn't have to carry anywhere near that weight. So you'll see this. And there's another picture of our tents at that first camp. And I think the next one you'll see, that's 45 pounds of climbing gear. That's my gear that I was carrying. You can see the ice axe, the boots, the helmet. And in the tent, I had crampons, I had
they
ropes.
want you to wear a helmet.
Oh, you had to wear a helmet at the higher elevations. Yes, definitely. When we were on the ropes and things like that. Now we're on our way to high camp, which is about 12,500 feet on the second night. So.
Now, did you see any independent people near you?
One
also?
or two, but not that many.
Not many.
Most because we were still climbing early in the season, because it was still cold.
Yep.
There weren't that many other groups out there.
So you're saying a lot of these people want to come in the summer?
Correct.
Okay.
But we wanted to come, and this is like winter climbing. That's our first view of Mount Whitney. So you can see it's on April 21st, as you can see.
Now, you were explaining to me this is a federal-controlled property?
Yes, it's a federal park. It's a national park, yes.
Oh, it is a national park?
Yes,
okay.
that's my recollection.
So there were some federal
rangers and
rangers.
Things. Exactly.
Okay,
we didn't see any, but you had to get permits from them, and we didn't see many people at all except the climbing group while we were out.
Animals? Any animals?
We saw a few, birds and the like. I'm trying to remember. There are bears. We didn't see any, but we didn't see a ton of animals. But yeah.
Were you near Yellowstone? I'm trying to think. I don't think you're that far from. No.
I'm not sure 100%
Okay.
how far Yellowstone is.
Because Yellowstone's up in that area.
It could be. That's the mountain we would be climbing in 2 days. That's our first view of it. We saw it about halfway through day 2.
Looks like Rock of Gibraltar.
It is. It's not. It's a challenging mountain. And now we're starting to see some snow. As you see, we're getting higher. We're starting to get more and more snow. And day 3, when we did our summit climb, it was all snow as we got up higher. So. And there we are. There's some people in our group. The guy on the left is the editor of Backpacker magazine. The guy in the middle is from DeLorme. And the guy in the third is from Big City Mountaineers. So we had a lot of pretty influential people in the outdoor world on this hike, which was kind of cool. and there's a couple of people from my group. And it's funny, we've stayed friends, and that's a nice picture of the Mount Whitney range.
Yeah.
I like that picture, yeah. And that one there is, Mount Whitney is on the right, and then they have these are called spires.
They look like spires.
Yeah. And people do technical climbs off those mountains.
What do you mean by a technical climb?
So with ropes, and belaying and things like that. Technical rock climbing, not just someone who's on a hiking trip. You have to actually have all the technical gear and have proper people and belaying and fixed ropes and things like that.
So you're saying that's the high end of mountain climbing is
Correct. It's technical climbing. It's not something that the average person can do.
Okay.
You have to be trained in it, and you have to have guides in most cases helping you. So there we. Yeah.
You haven't sold me yet on.
I know. I've been trying to do
climbing.
this. Every time I come in, I try to sell you, Jack, but I can't get you there. So maybe next time, right?
Next time.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas part sounded good.
Yeah, I know. And here we are. I figured you'd like the Vegas part. So here we are at High Camp, and we're just about getting ready. This is where we spent our second night, and we got ice axe training. You'll see that in a few slides.
I see very little vegetation in some of these.
Yeah, that's because we're up so high.
Because you're up so high.
Exactly. And there's our camps in night 2 at the High Camp, they call it. There's our tents and all. And there we are. We in the second afternoon we got there. We got crampon. How to use our crampons, which are basically the spikes you put on the bottom of your mountaineering boots, and also how to use ice axes if you fall to arrest your fall. It's called.
Now, where do you get the equipment? Somewhere like Eastern Mountain Sports Club?
Yeah, REI, Eastern Mountain Sports, and I also rented some from the guide service also.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have my own helmet, and I rented certain climbing gear, and I have certain other climbing gear that I bought.
So if somebody was, let me say, not an experienced climber but had some experience, wanted to go in one of these groups, they would arrange for them to get all the equipment they needed and everything?
Right, you could rent it, the equipment you didn't have, and the rentals aren't that expensive. It probably cost me about $100 in rental.
Oh, that's not bad.
Exactly, yeah.
Plus, with what the airlines charge you to carry everything, it might be cheaper.
That's a good point.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And here we are on day 2, getting the training on how to use the ice axe, how to use the ropes and things like that. And so that's our guide training us on that. We spent about an hour and a half practicing, to get ready, because we would need these skills.
Did you end up at the top of this thing?
I went up to the top of that thing, and I was on ropes. You're going to see I was on ropes and all kinds of crazy. And by the way, they didn't say when I applied that there was going to be technical rock climbing, which I hadn't done in 30 years since I did Outward Bound 30 years ago. So it was a little intimidating, but I got through it.
I was going to say, to me, it looks intimidating.
And 2 of the people in our group did not make it, and they had to step down because they had some health issues. So
really,
yeah.
And these were young people.
Some of them were young. Yeah, I was definitely the oldest by about.
Why?
6.
Because of breathing? What were the issues?
Yeah, breathing. One person had a family issue, but the other person had serious lung issues and had to come off.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. No. Exactly. No, and that can happen. It's called pulmonary edema. It's a mountaineering sickness, and particularly we went up. As I said, I was in the lowest point in America, and 3 days later I was in the highest point of America. So there wasn't a lot of time to acclimate. And you recall when I did my Nepal trip, I went to 18,000 feet, but I had several more days to acclimate. This one here, I was up on 14,500 feet after about 2 days.
So you're saying the fact that you are rushed to that higher level quickly can make a difference in how your body can deal with the height.
Correct. It doesn't give you as much time to acclimatize, they call it.
I got you.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So there's all kinds of verbiage for this.
Of course. Yeah. And then we had some nice time on that second night. It was a gorgeous day, so I sat in.
No, it looks like you had good weather the whole trip.
We were blessed with good weather, which was key. The first group that went out had a major snowstorm.
And what do you do? And you can interrupt me, but what do you do if you get stuck in a big storm?
You just have to wait it out, and then
you wait it out.
You make a determination whether you wait it out, and then climbs have to be sometimes aborted if the weather gets too bad. But we luckily had great weather.
Yeah, it looks like you had terrific weather.
We were fortunate in that way. So.
Oh, so these are some of the things that people should be aware of.
Absolutely.
Is that you could have close to a heart attack and you can get snowed in.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then here we are, the morning of the summit. We got up at 3 a.m. and at 4 a.m. we were ready to go. And there I am in the silver jacket in the middle. We were ready to roll.
Everyone looks happy, though.
Yeah, we were ready, and you could see we had all the gear on. We were ready to rumble. And then we hiked about 3 hours in the morning, and about 7 a.m. we stopped for a break. We were we were about 13,000 feet, so we had another 1,500 feet or so to go. It was the hardest 1,500 feet to go.
So tell me a little bit about the food at 13,000 feet.
We were dealing with a lot of dried food. We were dealing with a lot of, kind of mountaineering food, like things you can buy at REI, but they weren't carrying full food. And the days in question, we had Cliff Bars, some dried fruit, and things of that nature.
So this wasn't like the movies where they bring out a big...
That didn't happen.
A big smorgasbord with eggs and ham and bacon.
No,
okay.
No, it was lightweight mountaineering food, freeze dried and things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah. And here we are, as I said, this is about 7 in the morning. We started hiking around 4 a.m. and look how bright it is already at 7 in the morning.
I see this. The sky is like out of a perfect.
Exactly.
You sure these aren't shopped photos you dug up for me?
No, this is one of our guides, Lindsay. She climbs all over the world, and you'll see another guide, April, in a minute. And April's actually coming out to speak in Boston to my 10th anniversary of my law firm. I'm bringing her out to speak because this next guide you'll see in a minute, she's climbed most of the highest mountains in the world. This is an example of what we went up. We had to climb up that baby. Let's see how you can start to get a flavor. Yep, it's very, very steep, and we're getting ready to put the mountaineering equipment on as we get going. So. And there we are. I like that picture. The last 1,000 of the last 1,500 feet we were climbing up this very steep snow couloir, which means basically a crevice full of snow, extremely steep. And we were roped in we had 4 people in our group, and we were using the ice axe, and we were slowly making our way up. You can see they gave us a water bottle, official.
I was going to ask you, is that a water bottle or is that oxygen?
It's water bottle. Okay. That one there is water bottle. So.
Do some people have to bring oxygen?
They can, but usually not to this level of climbing, because this is not. You usually see oxygen more at the 18,000 feet or higher. But some
this
people
was pretty high. 15,000.
Right. Yep, I hear you.
Okay.
Yep. And there's a picture of our rope team. There I am and 3 of my buddies on the rope team. And you can get a sense of how steep it was. You see that lake at the bottom? That's called Iceberg Lake. But that gives you an example of how steep that was. And you can see I'm in my shirt sleeves, even though it was very cold, because we were working our butts off to get up that mountain.
So in other words, okay, I got you. So it's cold, but because you're working out and sweating and everything, you're...
Exactly.
Okay, I can cope with.
I was pretty tired. I hadn't even gotten to the top yet. That was probably about 10 in the morning. And then we made it to the notch. And the person I mentioned, April, she's in the blue shirt on the right. She's the one, she's climbed Mount Makalu, and she's coming out to my firm anniversary at the end of January. So she climbs all over the world, Africa, Peru, places like that.
What has she told you? Does she find big differences in where you climb?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of differences.
There are.
And she climbs even harder mountains than what I did here. She climbs some of the giants in Nepal, where there's all kinds of technical, these are 3-month expeditions. I don't have it that
Really?
I don't have that level. Like to climb Mount Everest, you have to commit
No,
much.
the town needs your help.
Exactly. I guess. Hopefully they do.
So these people will take 3-4 months, you're saying, to go somewhere and take a climb.
Take a climb, a Mount Everest or a Mount Makalu or some of the big.
So it's a big commitment.
No question about it, and you need a lot of money to do it too. They're very expensive. So.
Oh, really? Why? What does a Mount Everest type climb cost you?
If you're climbing as a novice, like someone like myself, they charge over $70,000. Actually,
what?
They do.
Repeat that for our viewers.
$70,000 to climb Mount Everest.
Really?
Oh yeah. But
wow.
I have things on my bucket list, but Mount Everest is not. But I have some other mountains on my bucket list.
Do groups like this, this association, will they plan a trip to Mount Everest? Is that something they would do?
They may, but you can definitely. These guide services will offer trips to Mount Everest, but you have to apply, train, be accepted, and pay a lot of money.
70,000. And how long a trip is? Well, go ahead. I'll go back to Mount.
So here I am in a minute. This is the last part.
I'm still recovering from the 70,000.
And you can this is the last 500 feet. We're class 4 to 5. And you can see how steep that is. And we had to get up that rock. You can see how steep it is. There's the people at the bottom.
Oh,
and that's an example of what we went up the last 500
This is what
feet.
you climbed.
Yes.
That right there.
And at that point, we're on ropes and we're being belayed and we're being basically.
Now, what do? You got to take a pick and put something in.
Yeah, you basically
bang it into the rock.
Yeah, not so much picks. You're basically hand climbing, but it's very steep, and you're having to throw your legs over things, and you got the rope, and it's it's intimidating, but.
Yeah, it is.
And you look down, and it's like pretty scary.
Do they bring a chiropractor on?
No, I know. No chiropractors, but. And that's a good picture of someone making it to the top. I like that with the sunlight. Isn't that cool?
Oh, all the pictures are great.
Yeah.
It looks to me a little bit like the pictures we get of the moon.
Exactly. It's a pretty amazing experience, and I was actually intimidated. That last 500 feet, I almost lost it at one point because I just persevered on, so that was good.
Oh, boy.
I wasn't gonna. When I came that far, Jack, I wasn't gonna stop.
No. You had to finish.
Right, exactly.
You had to finish.
Yeah. And that's a good picture of people coming. You see the ropes, and that's one of the other climbers coming up. You have the person up top. He's basically manning the ropes to make sure that the person, if he does fall, he only falls 10 feet instead of 100, 200 feet, you know.
Okay, great.
And there we are, you know.
Switch technical rock to the summit.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So that technical rock climbing to the summit is what we're talking about. And that's a good picture. And then they belaying you, as I mentioned, they're basically, as you climb up, they pull the rope up so you don't fall as much if you fall.
Is that what the term belay means?
Exactly.
So what is it again? It means?
It's so someone below them is climbing on a rope, and they have a rope, and I have what they call a climbing harness on my legs, and then affixed to it is a carabiner, and they basically set up the rope in such a way that if I fall, I will be grabbed by the carabiner, so my body will be stopped from falling and getting seriously injured.
And the term is belay.
In belay, and then when you're climbing up, they belay. They pull the rope up so that if you fall, you only fall a few feet instead of 200
It's almost
feet.
like when you lift a piano in moving.
Exactly.
I got you.
Hopefully I was a little bit more adroit than the piano, Jack, but maybe not much. So,
well, this is, I mean, between you and me, you're back and you're safe, but this is life and death stuff.
No
to a
question
degree.
about it.
Yeah.
No question about it. And I sometimes think I was thinking to myself the night before I was.
What'd Julie say? No comment?
No, she goes with it. She thinks it's a little crazy, I think, but this is an example of what we went up the last 500 feet. There's another view of it. So. And then we're on the summit. You're going to see some nice views of the summit. You can see how arid it is again because of how high we are. And plus, it's basically very close to the Mojave Desert and Death Valley, so it's very arid anyway. But because of our elevation, it was even more arid.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised actually that there wasn't a little more vegetation. I mean, earlier you showed, well, those trees were New Hampshire that we saw.
Correct. Exactly. And this
is I haven't seen anything really. The very beginning, I think you had a little bit of shrubbery. So
exactly. And this here is, again, it's above the tree line and it's in a very arid area. So. You're going to see some pictures. This is one of my friends. He was a good friend of mine, Reinhold. He's from North Carolina, great climber. And there I am. Melissa, one of the female climbers, made it up. There we are on top of the mountain. She did great. She lives in Colorado.
Oh, so they came from all over the country.
Right, and there I am on top of the world. That's
on top of the world.
Whitney Summit, yeah. And then they have, and that was the John Muir Trail, and this came up. You're going to see this.
1930.
1930, and this is so-called the Whitney Trail, which is the original way up is a lot easier than the way I went. But the U.S. Park Service, you're going to see built a summit hut to keep people who were up there in bad weather. You'll see that in a minute. So the U.S. Park Service, and there we are on the Summit Shelter. They call it. That's one of my co-climbers in the shelter.
That's what they built. The Summit
Shelter.
Summit
Shelter. But they don't. They say if bad weather, they want you off the ridge. But if you get caught up there, you at least can go in the Summit Shelter, which is built of solid rock. You can see it behind there. And then there's an example of the Summit Shelter up top.
Oh, okay.
So it's a pretty big building. That was built during the Work Progress Administration. I was going to
say that was probably one of those
exactly.
Depression-era projects.
Exactly, and it was a great project. I mean, it stayed for nearly 100 years now. So, but yeah, it was quite amazing. You'll see some. We had quite a good camaraderie on our group. Our group the whole expedition raised almost $300,000 for this.
Wow!
And I raised or donated about just under $10,000 of the money.
Wonderful.
Yep. I had a lot of people supporting me. There I am signing the summit log. You can sign showing you made it up top.
So now fun. This organization, will you have an opportunity at all to work with some of these young people that they're going to bring on different trips? And is that nationally done? In other words, is it possible some young people from Boston would be taken up to New Hampshire?
Yes.
Okay, so they do it regionally.
They do it regionally, and the short answer is yes, I could do the volunteering with the groups, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm definitely considering doing it. But Melissa, one of the climbers I showed, has volunteered in Colorado for Big City Mountaineers. So yes, it can be done, and they service a lot of kids. So that's great. Yeah.
No, that might be something enjoyable.
Definitely.
I think you might like it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying for a week, but you know.
Yeah, no, I did a lot.
days.
I did a lot of that through scouting too. I worked through scouting, so I could see myself doing it.
Yes. Chris in the Summit Shelter.
There I am in the-
I noticed they don't show you anywhere with a beer or a glass.
Absolutely. I know. Exactly. And
Okay,
that's the USGS survey markers showing, the USGS, the United States Geologic Society,
Yep.
will put survey markers, and that's just showing that that's the top of Mount Whitney. So, and there's our climbing team on the top of Mount Whitney. And this picture actually was in the September 2013 issue of Backpacker magazine, and I have it here. It's on page.
Oh,
it was
yes,
on page
there, I
12.
see it, yep.
So that was cool. There's a few more views of the summit.
Well, you know, I'll tell you something. It's great they have these organizations because I'm sure you'd like to do something in Switzerland or Italy.
Absolutely. Yep.
Spain has some great mountains.
Absolutely. My next two big climbs, I hope to do Mount Rainier in June outside of Seattle, and that's also a technical climb. Mount Rainier is a volcano and a glacier, very difficult. And then when my son gets out of the Army, we hope to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa
Oh,
together.
really?
Yeah, so that's coming up in 2
I
months.
remember I said to you that'd be a fun trip for you with your son.
Absolutely. So we hope to do that when he gets out. So that'll be
So
great.
what's that going to cost, Mount Kilimanjaro?
Kilimanjaro is not going to be cheap. It'll be several $1,000s, definitely. So.
And that, what, you would fly into Tanzania, I think?
Tanzania, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's a 6 or 7 day climb. But interestingly, unlike Mount Whitney and Mount Rainier, it's not technical rock climbing. There you can climb using just ordinary hiking and high elevation climbing, but not the ropes and the crampons and stuff. So this one here is more of a technical climb that I was on in April on Mount Whitney. So.
We had some wonderful guests who, go ahead, I'll let you.
So they're on my rope team on top of the summit. And, it's funny, I have to say this, the rope team, you have to work so closely together, and, occasionally you'd have to ask for a rest break. And these guys on my rope team, I was the oldest guy, so I tired a little bit more than they did, but I was totally with them, and they were so supportive of my getting up. And I was telling a couple of my friends, I hadn't felt that teamwork since playing college lacrosse for Georgetown University. That level of camaraderie and teamwork I felt so good, Jack. It was a very uplifting experience.
That's what develops. I'm sure your son would tell you in the military. I always hear these stories when I talk to military people. The camaraderie they develop.
Absolutely.
And put their lives in each other's hands.
No question about it.
It's a unique thing.
Right. It was a very exhilarating feeling, and to make it up there, at 52 years old, and just
You don't have to give your age.
No, exactly. But I'm just saying, it's a feeling of exhilaration that's hard to surpass. I have to say that, and also to have a charitable component to give something
Yep.
back here.
No, and the whole thing.
Right.
It's terrific.
Yep.
The camaraderie, the charitable portion of it, the fact that you love doing the climb and everything. Kilimanjaro, I've got a minute here before some more photos, but we had some guests who were with a church in Framingham who do wonderful work in Africa. And they were telling me one of the flights stops near Kilimanjaro. And they said a lot of people, go in to look, not that many climb. So I remember that in my mind that they had a flight service. Might have been Swiss Air. I don't remember who it was,
Yep.
but right not far from there. So that'd be a great trip for you.
No question. And in fact, when I was in Nepal, they do the same thing around Mount Everest. You can take a day flight. It's basically out of Kathmandu, and it's the equivalent of about $200, $150. You can actually do the circumference of Everest. But you have to be careful, because actually, I think I told you last time, the day before I arrived, one of those day flights of Everest that crashed and like 5 people were killed. But I think it's generally safe. But you have to be careful.
Generally safe, but the day.
Right, exactly. I think exactly. So we hung out on the summit. We reached the summit. We started hiking, as I mentioned, or climbing at around 4 a.m. We reached the summit at approximately 1 p.m. And we hung out at the summit at 2 p.m., and then the down climb took several hours. I did not make it back to the high camp until 7 p.m. So the whole day was about
So it's dark, I'm assuming.
It was in dusk when I came back, and it was a 15-hour expedition. We started in the dark in the morning, so. But it was a 15 hours. I was very tired coming off the mountain, very tired that day. So. And there we are, big city mountaineers, and that you can see we had the pennants we used and stuff like that. So, and every one of us made it, and it was
I
quite
can't
an
believe
experience.
the great sky, the great weather you had.
It was unbelievable weather. It was fabulous. And there's a picture. And then after my hour on the summit, I said I got to get off this mountain. You can see Iceberg Lake. Remember I mentioned
Yes.
Iceberg
Yep.
Lake early that morning, and I said I have to climb off this thing. And that was the downward. The down climb was scary because you had to constantly look down and find your way down that mountain. And we also.
So you're telling me going down can be just as dangerous?
It definitely can be. And we also rappel, which is basically you walk backwards off the rock. We did that about 200 of the 500 feet. We did mostly down climbing.
Oh, that's like when we see in the movies where people are dropping down and
Exactly.
their legs are hitting the...
Exactly. Yeah, I did that.
What's the term for that?
Rappelling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I got to learn all the words.
Exactly. So there I am, the downward climb, and you can get a sense the guy's belaying us off the mountain, same type of thing as we're rappelling off the mountain. I wish I took more photos of the down climb, but to be honest with you, I was too scared. I was too scared to get my camera out. I just was like I was in a life preservation mode. But I wish I took more photos of that. But.
No, these are great photos anyway. But, I didn't even give it a thought. While you're on the mountain, you're yanking out a camera,
exactly,
taking pictures.
You have to be careful of that.
I was going to say,
yeah. And at certain points, and it's funny, some of the best parts of the climb. I think I'm very happy with the slideshow I did here, but there were a few more pictures I wish I had taken. But at that point, you're in a survival mode. You're just saying, I got to get off this mountain. I got to figure out a way to. You're focused on the task at hand. So.
Oh, yeah.
And that's an example of some of the ropes that they'll set up. You see the big boulder they have this set up.
Now, I noticed two different colors. Is there a difference in strength?
Yes.
Okay, so explain to me.
So my understanding is, again, the guy did most of the rope setting up, but the red rope, my understanding is of a even higher tensile strength than the green rope. But they're very skilled, and so that's my understanding. You can see there's a couple, and there's even ropes. Even if that red rope failed, there's other things that green rope is also attached to a fixed. I think I call it a piton, Piton. So there's a couple. They have certain fail-safe, or if there's a failure, that this would not necessarily mean you fall off and get yourself injured or killed.
Now, did these, I'm sure these were more sophisticated people running this.
Yes.
But when you, for example, were in Nepal, did you feel, even though they weren't so sophisticated, they had as good a sense of...
Yes, and keep in mind, in Nepal, while I had to do some scrambling, I did not have to do any technical rock climbing like this.
Okay,
in other words,
so it wasn't as dangerous?
It wasn't as dangerous for that reason, correct.
Okay.
It was more dangerous because of the high elevations. I was 4,000 feet higher almost. Yep. But in terms of technical rock, this was a harder technical climb than Nepal.
And the sphere climbing would have been the most difficult.
Exactly.
Had you done those spheres.
Exactly, the spires, exactly.
The spires,
exactly. That there, would be something like you'd see in the Grand Tetons in Wyoming. That's even harder. But yeah, exactly, that type of climbing. But. And I'm going to be dealing with some of this in Mount Rainier too. And I love technical rock climbing, but it's not my favorite. I like being more out in the environment. Like, I'll never push myself to the highest levels of technical rock climbing because
Well, this technical rock climbing to me sounds more like a real sport.
It is a sport, yeah. Oh, and in fact, what I intend to do to get ready for Rainier is...
So what kind of people do you find are attracted to the technical...
Well, most people, they're usually very athletic. They're usually, younger, and they're usually, almost acrobatic in nature.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's almost like...
Yeah, you have to be very limber and be able to,
trapeze work.
Gymnasts and things like that, exactly.
Okay.
But it can be done, but I hope this winter, as I prepare for Rainier, to go to some climbing gyms and to keep working that,
They have climbing gyms. Specific gym. I know I've seen in some gyms, not that I go, but I see them.
Yeah.
They do have walls.
Exactly.
Okay, but do they have specific gyms dedicated just to climbing?
Sure.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, there's one in New Hampshire, and I think there's one. I haven't done that, but my intention is to do a couple of sessions, maybe get a couple of lessons, just to put my comfort level.
Do me a favor, when you come back to share Mount Rainier or Kilimanjaro, see if you can get me a couple of shots of what these gyms are. I'd like to share it with our viewers.
I'll do that.
I think it would be interesting.
Sounds good. I'm glad to do it.
Yeah.
So. There's a black and white picture just as we're coming off.
You
the
know, I'm
summit.
saying to myself, this looks like a World War II shot because it was black and white. I didn't think about it.
And some of these photos I shared, like we shared with our friends. Like I did not personally take that photo, for example.
That's okay.
Yep. But we had a nice sharing arrangement. And then on day 4,
you
we're
got a
getting ready to
beautiful
leave, and we had a
sunrise.
beautiful sunrise. And at that point, you're just exhausted, but you feel so exhilarated. Like when I got back at 7 p.m. the night before, I had a bowl of soup and went to bed. I was spent. But the next morning, and we still, keep in mind, the high camp is still 12,500 feet, so we had still had a lot of down climbing to do, but nothing as technical as the day before with the summit. But
Well, it's interesting, though, that you say coming down was really just as dangerous, and I'm sure you're right.
Right, they actually have statistics that say 80% of the mountaineering accidents happen on down climbing because your body's off high alert and you almost
That's
think...
what it is. You're
Right,
off high alert.
Right, and also keep in mind you have the forces of gravity. In other words, if you fall when you're climbing up, you're more likely to fall just a few feet. But if you're stepping down 3 or 4 feet, you could tumble 10, 15 feet.
I'm going to give you a business idea.
What's
You
that?
should promote your law firm as specializing in mountain climbing accidents. You'd be the perfect attorney for that.
I guess I could be.
My goodness, you know all the terminology, and Mr. Barron, weren't you prepared for the downward trek? And
Right.
didn't you acclimate yourself properly? You'd really know how to get me on the witness stand.
I guess I could trip you up, Jack.
You'd trip me up.
So there's our group leaving high camp the morning of leaving. You can see Mount Whitney in the
This
background.
guy looks like one of those duck fellows from one of those duck. Or he could have looked like the Red Sox this summer.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. It's a good point. Good point.
Day
so-
4, the descent.
Right. So I just took a few pictures of the
That's all
descent.
right.
Yeah, as we're coming off. So. And we're on our way down. So we started about 8 that morning. We got down to it was about a 7-hour hike. We got down to what they call the Whitney Portal after about 7 hours of hiking. So we took, as you remember, we took 2 days to get to high camp. We
Yep.
only took 1 day to get back down because it's still easier to climb down, but
So
still
you
have to
move
kill.
much faster
Correct.
coming down.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see some of the rock we were descending down. But again, this was no technical climbing on the 2nd day. On the 4th day, I should say, only on the 3rd day. And there's just some...
Now, did this area, did you know if they did any mining or anything?
They definitely did.
They did.
They did, but I don't know all the history. But they have a rich history. John Muir discovered it, and they definitely have a rich history of it. But it was basically they had mining, and they had some... it's mostly adventure travel now. I'm not sure this may be some farming in the lower elevations, but
Really? Because up there wasn't any farming.
no farming up here, exactly. So
In California, okay, say goodbye to Whitney.
that's our last picture of Whitney. We were just leaving that. That was probably about 3 hours after hiking the last day. That was our last picture where you could see the Whitney Range, and then eventually you get below
that's
it.
what they call it, the Whitney Range.
Whitney Range, exactly.
All right, so you finished, you came down from the hike.
Yeah.
Did you spend a day, how did they finish it up with you? Did you?
So basically, what happened? You'll see some pictures, but I got down on the summit day around 7 p.m.
Yep.
Had my soup, went to bed, and then day 4 we had about 7 hours to hike out to the Whitney Portal, and then we met for dinner and that type of thing. So the last day was pretty much just getting off the mountain. And
Okay.
Then,
And then everybody was driven to, they had buses to take you to the
They had,
airport? Or you had a rent-a-car? What was
we
the?
stayed the night in the town. It was not Bishop, but a nearby town.
Okay.
And then we flew out the next day. Because I wouldn't have been in any condition to drive to Las Vegas or L.A.
Really?
I was too tired. Yeah, definitely. You needed to.
Really? So you felt after this whole thing, you said, you know what, I need services to get me back. I'm not
Exactly.
ready to drive.
Exactly, right.
So this is an exhausting thing.
Exactly. You have to be really ready for it. It's challenging, no question.
Yeah, no, it looks.
Yeah.
It looks very challenging. So you got back to, you went.
And I want to tell you.
Oh, you brought your Red Sox.
And I want to tell this story, Jack, because this was literally about 3 or 4 days after the marathon bombing, and in fact, when I drove to the airport that Friday morning, it was when they had locked down Watertown. They were capturing the
Yes.
Tavares brothers, and so I bought a hat for Whitney to celebrate the Red Sox, and so a lot of my buddies from the climb were so thrilled because I was at Game 6 of the World Series when the Red Sox won the World Series. And so I had my Boston. I was celebrating Boston at this time because I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get out for the climb because they were closing down the airport. It was crazy,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Well, listen. You know, you don't know what's going on when these things happen, and
Right. So
I call them the Bomber Brothers.
Exactly. I was celebrating Boston on this, and I was the guy from Boston. It
Good
was
for
cool.
you.
Yeah. And then here we are. You can see now we're starting to get lower. You start to see the trees little by little. Mostly it starts with evergreens, which is quite common at the high elevation.
Okay, so this we're finally seeing some vegetation.
And that's probably around...
I was saying to you, I don't see anything.
Right, that's probably around 9,000 feet. Keep in mind I was 5,000 feet higher, so...
So that's when the stuff starts to show.
Exactly, and then they had river crossings as we were coming off the mountain.
Oh, okay, so you had some water up there.
Exactly. At some of the lower elevations, you saw rivers and lake. And we got our water out of that, and we purified the water.
Now, when you say you purified, what do you do?
Usually, you can either use a water filter or they have these pills that you can use.
What do you mean? You take the water and you put it in like a bucket and drop a pill in it?
Right, there's a pill that's basically like killed it, or you can use like some people use water filtration devices too.
Okay.
Which is basically,
all right.
You can basically pump it through this pump that basically gets basically you're trying to avoid like giardia and these basically bacteria, fecal bacteria type things.
That's what can be in those streams.
Correct. From whether it be animal droppings and the like. And, yes.
I got you.
Yep.
So in other words, it's not like you see on TV where they go find this wonderful brook and the water is bubbling and they say, "Oh, isn't this fabulous?" No, you can get poisoned.
You have to be careful. You can get basically dysentery and the like. You want to avoid it if you can.
Good to know.
And your body's under stress anyway, so you want to take whatever precautions you want to eat. You want to sleep to the best of your ability. You want to get proper water because your body's under duress anyway. So.
See, I wouldn't even think about that, but that's good to know.
Yeah. And then here I am at the end of my, this is just some things about it, first ascent was by...
Oh, they say it's granite.
Yeah.
Okay.
And right, Mount Whitney Trail is the easiest route. That's class 1. This is basically ordinary hike, and I took the Mountaineers route. And that's all from Wikipedia. And it's part of the Sequoia National Park and the Inyo National Forest.
I gotcha.
So as I mentioned, it is part of a national park. And so that's information, and these are some of our sponsors, but basically it talks about bringing over 1,200 kids into the outdoors, and we raised over $280,000, and there's some of our sponsors, Black Diamond, they make a lot of outdoor equipment, Liberty, they make some of the water bottles.
So these companies get right involved with
Exactly, no, they have major national sponsors. You're going to see another page with some of the additional sponsors.
Isn't that, see, I wouldn't know these companies because...
Yeah.
But that's terrific.
And
they gave you an award.
Right, and they gave me, and you can see saying I did it with technical rock. You can see the difference. This is 14,508 feet, and then yet in Wikipedia says it's 14,496 feet. And the reason is the mountain gets slightly taller every year due to like just climatic changes and
really?
Settling and also increasing. I'm not sure. Basically, the glacier, the ice age is still moving underneath. The mountain changes in its height. It's actually 14,508 feet now. So, and it's signed by the guides and the owner of Sierra Mountaineering.
So they get sponsors and everything.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
This is like a big event.
And then I just had a couple of slides to celebrate Boston Strong because, as I mentioned, I did this climb to celebrate Boston, and just felt so bad for our city when that whole thing went down with the marathon.
Was something terrible.
Yeah. And then you're going to see one final.
I pray to God this year when we have the marathon where we don't have any problems.
Exactly. And then just quote Mayor Menino. He did that at the funeral service. This is we are one Boston. And so that is my slideshow, Jack, for my amazing journey.
Oh my goodness, terrific!
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
But it's devastating what we went through with.
No question. Yep.
Oh, so everyone was on your side there? They liked your hat and they said, "Chris, we're climbing for you."
Yeah, well, everyone was climbing for their own reason, but I think they respected that, I was about the Red Sox, and it was nice to close the circle because I did this climb right at the beginning of the Red Sox season and right after the marathon tragedy, and the Red Sox obviously took that on as their cause, and so to be at the 6th game of the World Series and to observe them win the World Series was pretty amazing.
So Mount Rainier, tell me a little bit what you have to prep. Any different preparation than this trip?
It will be similar. I hope to do, I'm scheduled to go June 20th to the 26th of 2014. And once the new year hits, I'll do some winter climbing work, much like I did here, and I'll try to do 8 to 10 serious prep hikes. And you're
like a guy running the marathon.
You have to get ready.
You really have to. You spend a lot of time
Right, exactly.
preparing.
Right, and I felt, to be honest with you, it's almost like, I said this to my wife, it's almost like scared straight. In other words, I know, because I have to be up here, and I'm dealing with some, I'm in very good shape, but I'm in my 50s, so I have to prepare more, I feel, than the average younger, guy or woman who's doing this in their 20s or 30s, and I'm prepared to do that preparation, and that's part of the excitement, and you just slow down, you get ready, and it's a great feeling. It really is.
So you better tell your son. You tell him Jack said. I would. He better prepare too, even though it sounds to me like he may be in great shape from the military
Yes.
and everything else. This sounds like you need to prepare yourself in a different manner.
No question about it. And I think that
You got to prepare for heights. You got to have your body deal with the acclimation of the oxygen and everything else.
Right.
You've got a lot involved.
Right. In fact, my son is giving me for Christmas this year. He's given me an oxygen mask, which you can basically replicate, different levels of elevation. And I
That's a
intend,
good idea.
I intend to train with that this season. I also have a personal trainer that I work with on a weekly basis.
Really?
His name is Mike Sylvester. He does a fabulous job. So I was with him today, and so I run up and down the stairs in my house today with backpack with 40, 50 pounds of weight on me. So.
We should have, I'm going to have Julie take pictures of you prepping for your next time, because I don't think most people to be honest with you, I would not realize how much work you have to go through to get to this level.
Absolutely.
I'm one of those idiots who, just say, oh, he went up there, so, it was Monday, decided to go Tuesday.
Right.
You prepare almost a year.
Right. If you go Monday and decide to go Tuesday,
You're going to die.
You're going to fail. No, you're definitely going to fail. And in fact, I was interviewed by the Mass Lawyers Weekly last week, and they're doing an article on my climbing. It's coming out next week. And in that, I said there's actually a lot of analogies for mountain climbing and climbing expeditions to being a good lawyer. And one of them is preparation.
Absolutely.
To succeed in a law case, you have to be prepared. To succeed in a mountain climb, it's the same thing. And another point I mentioned in terms of
I think that's many things in life.
no question about it.
You have to do some homework and be prepared.
No question about it.
But this, I didn't realize you go through such extreme, well, I shouldn't say extreme, but tedious preparation.
Right, and I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm giving myself till Christmas at a kind of a moderate, and then after the new year, my intention is to start ramping it up, because you can't train for like 9 months. I think the 4 to 6 months of a good regimented training, will be good, and that's what I intend to do. So.
Well, I'm going to wish you lots of good luck.
Thank you, sir.
You've got to promise me to come back.
I will.
Because I want to see that. And folks, thank you very much. If you have any trouble with the town of Framingham, call Chris. He's going to beat me up.
No, this is my relaxation time, Jack. So.
Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you for having me, Jack.
My
You did a great
pleasure.
job.